What's going on, guys? We've got some interesting news today. First off, this supposedly Bitcoin reserve might not just be for Bitcoin. We're going to talk about the developments of a strategic Bitcoin reserve, any news on that. We also have some news from Coinbase. Coinbase is offering Bitcoin-backed loans through Morpho, and rather than a credit rating, you'll use your Bitcoin as collateral as a way to get approved for the loan. And we're going to talk about the spot Bitcoin ETFs, what's in store for 2025 according to some analysts. And of course, we'll look at Bitcoin on the chart. We do have a level to break out. We're not yet out of our descending resistance, but things have been looking a lot better recently. Now, as for this strategic reserve news, there's speculation. This is unidentified sources. This isn't established necessarily. This is speculation still. But it was reported on January 16th that Trump is receptive to the idea of establishing a strategic reserve, not just using Bitcoin, but also prioritizing cryptos like USD coin, Solana, XRP, for example. Sources told the Post that this idea could sideline Bitcoin. I think that's an interesting use of words. One reason people are speculating this is because Trump had dinner with Ripple's CEO and also their chief legal officer. And the CEO of Ripple, Brad Garlinghouse, shared a photo from the dinner, calling it a strong start to 2025. And by the way, XRP is pumping, no surprise. Keep an eye on what Trump says. Keep an eye on things going around. There are definitely plays to be made. Whether you like the guy or not, there is money to be made every time he mentions a certain crypto, and depending on who he has dinners with, depending on who he's cool with. Now, as you can guess, there are some strong reactions to this. David Bailey, for one, the CEO of BTC Inc., dismissed this concept as fake news, calling Ripple a Camela coin. And Mike Dudas, co-founder of the block, mocked the idea, posting on X, LOL, strategic Solana reserve. Things are about to get real stupid real fast. Now here's Kashif Raza, the CEO of BitInnings take. He warned against the potential risks of including altcoins to a national reserve, and he told Cointelegraph that basically the US government should have started with Bitcoin, test the waters essentially, gauge its impact before considering altcoins. That's a good point. If it's announced that the US is going to launch a strategic reserve, not just with Bitcoin, but with Solana, with XRP, potentially even smaller cap altcoins, they will absolutely pump. The US will pump these coins if they announce something like this. He brings up the negatives, though. I see this potentially as a positive in some ways, of course, but there are negatives. Altcoins are more volatile, that is true, especially during bear markets, no doubt. Heavy investment in them could lead to significant losses and negative media coverage. While I agree with that, I would personally like to see something like this if it was used in a very small way. For example, if we do a strategic reserve, Bitcoin should be 90% with altcoins as 10%, no more than that. I do think a lot of these altcoins would pump on any speculation, any real news of the US actually buying them. This is definitely something to watch, a trend to watch moving forwards. Whether it does or doesn't happen, that's not what I'm here to say. In case it does happen, keep an eye on the altcoins that could benefit. Imagine that for an altcoin season though. Within a couple months, seeing altcoins added to the US's strategic reserve, that would be a great way to kick off alt season. But what do you guys think? Do you think the US is going to implement some kind of strategic reserve, including altcoins? Is it going to just be Bitcoin, or is that even too optimistic? Do you think the US is going to do nothing with Bitcoin? Now let's look at this Coinbase news, offering loans utilizing Bitcoin. Now while this isn't new, you wouldn't be able to do this on Coinbase necessarily. You could go on Morpho or other DeFi services, but now there's an easier access to it because Coinbase is going to implement Morpho. As said by Max Brandsburg, head of consumer products at Coinbase, there's a moment where we're planting a flag that Coinbase is coming on chain. We're bringing millions of users with their billions of dollars. Now remember, there is definitely risk to this. For example, if the Bitcoin you're using as collateral drops substantially, you could get liquidated. If price swings are reaching any sort of dangerous point, we will share liquidation warnings through the Coinbase app so you're aware of it and can act. Sounds a little risky if you ask me. So what does 2025 have in store for the spot Bitcoin ETFs? Well, considering that 2024 had record flows despite foot dragging by some wirehouses, financial advisors, some financial firms prohibiting employees from even owning Bitcoin or altcoins in their personal portfolios. With more support from the advisors, wirehouses likely, and the tailwind of price, 2025 flows will easily surpass 2024. And according to Nate Gerasi, president of the ETF store, 2025 could be the year of crypto ETFs, predicting that over 50 more crypto ETFs will be approved under new leadership. And I love this. He uses Gary Gensler's words against him. Gary Gensler always referred to crypto as the Wild West. Nate Gerasi wrote in a post that under the Trump administration, I think that is exactly what we'll get from an ETF perspective. Now, if you didn't know how great 2024 was for the Bitcoin ETFs, BlackRock's IBIT had the most successful launch in the history of US ETFs. accumulating more than 52.3 billion of assets in its first year. Now, looking at Bitcoin as I'm recording, it is sitting right at $100,000. We are facing this descending resistance we need to break out of. Bitcoin is now again back over the 50 MA after its brief period underneath it. Bitcoin has held up this important roughly 91.5, 92,000 area. So far, so good. What I really want to see is obviously 1, a break of this descending resistance, and 2, a break of this previous high. If we can create a higher high, establish this area as a support, use it to launch off, and then test our all-time high of 108,000. In my opinion, Bitcoin is close to breaking new all-time highs. I think the speculation of the new administration's positive stance of Bitcoin is going to cause things to pump, whether you like the new administration or not. That's not what I'm here to debate. And, you know, some people say 150 is a very conservative price target for Bitcoin. I do think at 150K, it is a great time to trim Bitcoin. It is a great time to take some profits. When Bitcoin's 150K, where are the Bitcoin miners at? What timeline are we in by this point? Maybe Bitcoin hits 150K within the first half of 2025, then perhaps I would agree that 150K is too conservative. But for now, I'm going with 150K. It isn't just going to be a straight shot up. There are going to be pullbacks along the way. And people thought last cycle that it was going to be so easy to reach $100,000 last cycle. We reached under 70,000. The people that were waiting for more missed out on the gains. The people that didn't follow the cycle and trim along the way in that post-halving year, which we are in by the way, the people that didn't trim in the 50s and 60s and so on ended up being the bag holders. So if you are not trimming when Bitcoin is 150K, and we're talking about we're getting towards the end of 2025 and Bitcoin's barely 150K, to me that will be the time to trim. To me, that will be the time to sell. Because Bitcoin's at 100,000, to get to 150K, Bitcoin obviously needs to gain 50%, which seems very easy, seems very doable. You got to realize if Bitcoin doubles in price, not just a 50% gain, but if Bitcoin were to double in price and go to $200,000, Bitcoin would be worth more than Nvidia. Bitcoin would be worth more than Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, Apple. Do you think Bitcoin deserves to be worth more than Apple this cycle? Do you think it's a bad idea to trim a little bit of Bitcoin once it reaches around the market cap of Apple? I don't think so. I don't think that's a bad idea. In the end, my advice that I can't give you because I'm not a financial advisor is follow the cycle. Trim into strength. While things are looking great, if things are getting to 150K, you're talking about an RSI into the 90s, which is typical of a sign of topping. You want to take profits into that strength. You don't want to be piling in when Bitcoin is 150,000 with people saying it's going to go to 200, 300, 400,000. And maybe it does. Maybe we have a genuine supply shock. And if that's the case, all bets are off. Bitcoin can go anywhere. It's anybody's guess. But my expectation this cycle, I've been saying it from the beginning, is 150K. For Bitcoin to 10x from its bear market lows to its cycle top, I think that is a reasonable, very doable thing to do. And I'd rather be right with a target that hits like 150K than to be overly optimistic with a price like 300K that's very unlikely to ever hit. At least this cycle, that is. But thanks as always for watching, guys. What do you think about Bitcoin? Where is it going to top out? Is 150K too optimistic, considering we have less than a year left of this cycle? You also have to remember all-time high was broken early this time around. That could be attributed to the spot Bitcoin ETFs, but be that as it may, we are a little bit ahead of schedule, so consider that. Maybe we don't top out at the end of 2025. Maybe it's closer to mid-2025. Maybe Wall Street does a little bit of front running. But what do you guys think about all this? Are you going to follow Bitcoin's cycle? Are you just going to hold for the long term? In the end, we are still looking at a fantastic 2025 with the Bitcoin miners soon to be back into profitability, with Bitcoin, in my opinion, soon to break all-time highs, and with altcoin season kicking off as it normally does right around this time. But thanks as always for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.